May 11th, 2022. Let's see here. First up on the agenda is planner's report.
Sure. So one item in the packets tonight is a letter from the Department of Housing and Community Development related to the subsidized housing inventory for Bolton. So we're still at just under 4%. It's going to decrease slightly once the 2020 census figures come out. So those numbers are still not being used because the data on seasonal, temporary, and year-round housing figures have not been finalized, even though that has little impact in Bolton. And then it will, of course, increase once the project at 580 Main goes through. So the minimum, just as a reminder, the minimum amount to have is 10%, at which point we have more flexibility in creating affordable housing. It's also the time of year that I'll need signatures on the list from the Registry of Deeds, so they know who is able to sign for which type of permit. So I'll send out an email either at the end of this week or next week to let you know when that's ready for your signatures. And then we do have the marijuana establishment rules and regs to review tonight. I've also been looking at a few other types of permits just to think about what other rules and regs we might need to create and what types of applications we might need to update. So for instance, with last week's discussion of 5 Harvard Road, we mentioned the bed and breakfast bylaw, but there's actually no application or rules and regs around that. So I've also had questions about the kennel special permit process, and there's no rules and regs there either. So I'm thinking that I'd like to combine application forms and rules and regs into one that's simply for all special permits. Of course, understanding that marijuana establishments would be separate, but to have kind of something a little bit more streamlined for bed and breakfast special permits, business permits, kennel special permits, so that they're all kind of reviewed in the same way and that we have a clear process for all of those. So I'll be kind of chipping away at that a little bit over the summer. I'm also interested in streamlining site plan review. This is typically something that is with the planning board. Right now it's held with the select board. So kind of interested in stealing that away from them. We can issue special permit decisions combined with site plan approval. So it would also offer the applicants a little bit more, just an easier application process. And that way there's not an odd timing between site plan approval and special permit approval. So you can take a look at both at the same time. And then we also, we need a little bit more on the shade tree and scenic road process. I think the application even refers to, or the bylaw refers to the wrong Mass General law. So just a little bit of bylaw cleaning up while there's a little bit of a lull in planning board applications. So those are some short-term goals for the coming months. And I think that's all I have right now.
Okay. And is Bob, have the selectmen approved Bob yet, or is he still just an interested observer?
Tomorrow night, I believe.
Tomorrow night. Okay.
I am interested though.
Good. Okay. Let's see. I did not see the April 27th minutes in the packet, so
No.
Okay, we will skip that. Okay, next on the hit parade here is our annual reorganization of the planning board for chairman and vice chairman. This year, I'm obviously chairman, Pete's been vice chairman. I will, so just a small piece of background here. So come probably sometime this fall, I will be heading north permanently. So I will be moving out of town at that, depending on house sales and closings and all that sort of stuff. So at that point, I'll be stepping down from the board, obviously. So I'm happy to continue as chairman until then if you want, or we can get somebody else in place to, to get them up to speed while, they can ask me what to do and then they can ignore it and do what they want. So whichever, that's the background there. Not sure what who people want to put in place or what people's thoughts are here. So I'll give you a second here to contemplate that and then chime in.
Well, it's too bad to see you go, but I think that is a good idea to maybe if Pete wanted to move up from the vice chair to the chairman, then you could be around to help him out for anything. That sounds like a pretty good idea if he's up for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly up for it. My only issue, is just sometimes my work schedule can conflict, and sometimes that's a little bit unpredictable where something comes up and I might have to. Obviously, travel's been a little limited the last couple of years. There's been some. So yeah, I mean, I'm certainly fine. Mark, if you want to, you have a lot more experience with, everything related to our town bylaws and rules and regulations. And, if you want to continue on for a period of time and then, we can see how the board feels, I would be fine with that. I'm happy to stay as the vice, chair for now, or I'm also happy to step aside if someone else is feeling, more, like I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to step in and do the role for a while, but I'm also not, I'm okay if other folks have more time to dedicate and they really want to do it. I'm okay to let that. So that's my perspective.
Valerie, did you talk to Mike?
Yeah, I did. I just
Okay.
asked if I let him, because I knew that he wasn't going to be at this meeting. I wanted him to know about Mark's news and get a sense of his interest too. And he also said that he does have some conflicts that would end probably in July. He's got baseball this month, which is why he's not here today. And I think he also will be needing to miss the next May meeting. But after June, he said that he, if there's no one else that's interested, he'd also be willing to step up.
Okay. Jim?
Well, I just got on as a full-time member, so I'm still, learning just a little bit. And honestly, I'll do whatever it takes. And I like to hold off and, let Mark. You have the wisdom to
I
do
have
this
something,
stuff,
that's for sure.
So I'm still in my own personal. I'm still learning, and it's just just getting elected as a full-time member. It's just baby steps.
Okay. Bob doesn't have a say on it yet. He's just making note of it for master planning changes now too. So
I guess.
Yeah,
I
that's
guess.
right.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm in my car on the way back from baseball as well. Softball. Sorry. I don't know. Maybe I would suggest that we go with Pete as the chairman and maybe Mark as the vice chairman until Mark leaves, and then we can just figure out somebody else as vice chairman. I mean, that's my suggestion. Because then Mark could fill in if Pete isn't here, and could work with Pete if there's anything like procedurally that he's unsure of.
Okay, I'm whatever the board wants. So
I mean, yeah, if you're interested, Pete, in it, you've been on the board for a while, so you can definitely take your shot at it.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that. I mean, I took a look at the proposed, meeting schedule. I know we still have to talk about that for the summer. And those dates are, okay for me. I do have some summer plans, but those don't conflict. I'm really so I'm pretty good for the next few months. I think I'll be fine. I'm more concerned of once we get to the fall and some other things might change. So, as long as, depending on, Mark, how long you, maybe you'll change your mind and stay with us, but no, if we get to that point, and as long as someone else, if we get someone, if you're the vice chair and you step down, we get someone who, doesn't have a lot of conflicts too.
All right, well, if you're ready I'll nominate Pete as chairman.
okay. Do I hear a second, Jim?
Second.
And those in favor, Mark Sprague,
Yes.
Eric Neeland,
Yes, I don't know. You didn't hear me, I guess.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
and Pete Driscoll. You can vote for yourself.
Okay, I'll say yes.
Your last chance to say no for it. So
I'll do my best and certainly rely on some guidance from you, Mark, over the next few months.
okay.
Then does that sound like a good idea to have Mark as the vice chairman, or James, would you want it, or should we wait to see if Mike wants it, or?
I think I'd like to hear what Mike's input is on it. Again, having a little bit of a background in, Mark has experience, and for Pete to be able to, rely on Mark and vice versa, and stuff that's happening, because we have a lot on our plate coming on. So I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah, I think that's good. And then when he leaves, we could just figure out who wants to be vice chairman then. So I don't know. I'll nominate Mark as vice chairman.
I'll second.
And those in favor, Eric Neeland,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
Pete Driscoll,
Aye.
and Mark Sprague.
Aye. Okay. So you get to start all this next meeting, Pete. I won't drop this on you tonight. So
All right, I'll prepare myself.
okay, good. Okay. So next on the agenda is the planning board schedule for June, July, August, and September. The proposed dates are, I hope they're all Wednesdays. I didn't actually look, but June 8th and 22nd, July 13th, August 10th, September 14th and 28th. Any conflicts, complaints, problems?
Those are all good with me. I was just looking because I do have some things, and they are all Wednesdays, and they're fine with me.
Okay. Jim, any problem with those dates? I mean,
No,
if somebody misses a meeting, they miss, for vacation or whatever, they miss a meeting. It's not not the worst thing in the world. So, okay. Eric, any problem with those dates?
I mean, I don't think so. Nothing, like, I don't have any vacation planned. I'm not sure
Okay.
if something will come up or not, but as of now, I don't see any issues.
Okay. Valerie, do you want a motion to accept those, or just?
I think it's fine if members are just in agreement that works.
Yep. Sounds like we're all in agreement. And Bob will just have to fit his schedule around those. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so we're a little No, we're on time. Okay. So the next is public hearing, preliminary phosphid for South Bolton Road, map 2C parcel 23. And this is a continuation from October 7th, 2021, November 10th, 2021, January 12th, 2022, February 9th, 2022, March 9th, and April 13th, 2022. So what's going on, Valerie?
So the applicant has requested another continuance to May 25th at 7 p.m. He's feeling like he anticipates having plan updates at that point. So now he has, in March, he heard back from Natural Heritage. He was able to hire a herpetologist, and now he's doing some plan revisions. So it sounds like good progress.
Okay. So is he set at 7 o'clock, or I mean, I don't know whether we want to start at 7 or have him start at 7:15.
We have another public hearing at 7:30. That's the common driveway, also along South Bolton Road, the Slade parcels. So I thought perhaps we could just start off with the public hearing, and then we can do administration.
Okay. Okay. Do we have it? Okay, so our deadlines are moving out as he requests continuances on this, right? Okay.
Yeah, the current deadline for him is, I believe, in June. I think it's June 1st or June 5th. So the May 25th is still within that.
Okay. Okay. Do we need a motion to continue it?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we continue the public hearing for South Bolton Road to May 25th at 7 p.m. Is that what? Okay.
Yep.
Second.
And those in favor, Mark Sprague,
Yes.
Eric Neeland,
Yes.
Jim Barr,
All right.
and Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
Okay.
All right.
Next is, let's keep this moving going. Common driveway as-built for Tadmore.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe George Gallagher is joining the Zoom at this moment. Here we go. George, you're right in time. So Habitat submitted as-built plans for the Tadmore subdivision common driveway. So this is a common driveway that goes off of Goose Pond Road. We sent it over to the peer reviewer, and peer reviewer came back and said, this looks premature because there's a home along that common drive that has yet to be built. So you typically wouldn't, finish the road before finishing the homes. So rather than have a lot of heavy machinery come down a road that is not, that is finished, and then you might be damaging that road. So I took another look at the common driveway decision, and it does look like I didn't catch this before. I think I had just saw number 7 and didn't read number 8. So condition 7 says that a final building permit wouldn't be given until the as-built plan is approved. Condition 8 says the final occupancy permit wouldn't be given until the as-built is approved. So I'm not sure if others are reading this differently than I am.
So clause, is there section 7 is right, until it's been reviewed and approved, or until a surety is posted for amount sufficient to complete the work.
Okay.
So there's a, so I
There's
think
the or.
that's where the, I mean, this wouldn't be the the first common drive where it gets approved and there's still construction going on. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily I'm not sure if that's a significant problem. As long as the surety is there to fix any damage that's done during the construction of that final house.
I'll have to review to see if a surety has been posted.
Okay.
George, do
'cause
you?
I would think as part of the subdivision bond, we probably, that was probably included.
That makes sense to me. I would need to double check the amounts there, which I can try to do while we're still chatting right now. But it does seem, okay, so it does seem like I was moving a little fast, and it seems like it is acceptable to say that we'll delay until the approval of the as-built until the final occupancy is requested, so long as there is the surety in place.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think it's going to take me a little bit longer to find this. I think that we've divided this into subdivision bond, common driveway bond, and perhaps another type of fee. So I'll have to look through these spreadsheets. But as long as that sounds right for everyone here, George and I can kind of hash this out in the morning.
Okay. Are you looking for the last building permit or not yet?
Yeah, we're looking for the last one. We've got it.
Okay.
We've got it sold.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and the last
last-
building.
I'm sorry, Valerie, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We have, 4 lots on the common driveway. 3 are under construction, sold in lot 8, which is not under construction. We have a foundation in, but that's also sold.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, so I guess Valerie, if you and George can hash it out, and we can review this next meeting, I guess.
Right. It may, if there is a surety posted, I would just provide the building permit and wait until he's looking for the occupancy at that point. So it may be that it's a few more months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then once the last house is pretty much complete, then you'll do the final paving and be done and go from there. Or are you looking to put the top coat on now?
No, we'd wait until we're probably doing the landscaping of the final house and then put the top on.
Okay. Okay. So at that point, then, they would be really when I expect the final as-built to be done. So,
Yep.
Okay.
And Goose Pond Path is not anticipated to be accepted by the town. Is that correct?
No, it is.
It is. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. All right.
So start early on getting all that buttoned up so that it's ready for next year.
Yeah.
Next
No,
town
we'd love
meeting.
to. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's all we've got on Tadmore tonight.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you
for your time,
time.
George.
Okay, great. Thanks, George.
Bye.
Um,
Thank you, George.
Okay. Okay, next is A&R review for 580 Main Street. So I was underwhelmed by the plans they provided, but yeah. Okay. So I think this is more just a grudging courtesy from the owners there to let us take a look at it.
No, so this is,
Or-
I heard from the housing developers that they wished for this A&R to be reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So the applicant for this A&R is different than the housing development. So this is this is a different process. I think the housing developer was hopeful this would be in front of the ZBA, though it is typically A&Rs are the planning board's purview. So, and we have Jeff
Okay.
O'Neill here. I don't know, Jeff, if you wanted to share your screen and review the A&R, or if you'd like me to
share
pull
the,
that.
okay. You have to disable your,
There we go. Should allow you now.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So this is, I have 3 screens, sorry about that. So just hang on. Everybody see that screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Everything good? Okay. So the entire lot encompasses this section of the lot that goes all the way around down here and up through the brook, the middle of the brook, and then back up, as you can see, encompassing 580 Main. So that's what's existing today. As part of the subdivision with the Wood Partner Group on the potential residential going at the rear of the site, the frontage would be subdivided here, giving enough frontage coming through, and then our portion of the remaining office building would encompass this section right in there as far as that lot area goes. That lot line would be cut through the second part of the building. As part of the development, what will occur is this back pod will be torn down, making way for this property line that would meet the appropriate setbacks to come all the way through. And the goal is just to leave the front office pod, which is about 3 stories. And then there's a joiner and connector entrance right in that area. So this property line is what right now most of the development for Wood Partners is designing around. And then subsequently with that, there was some request, I believe, by their consultant is to understand the easement plan, how the utilities are shared amongst the site. So that was kind of the second drawing that goes with it. As you can see, the driveways are shared going through. There is leach fields that are shared in a proposed sewer area. And then we also have some proposed drainage that is going to be shared, as well as inbound water easement coming into the building. So basically, kind of straightforward, kind of simplifies what we're trying to do and meet their demands as well. And then once, if they do get approved, then we would start the process of demoing the back part of the building, of the office building.
Okay. So about how many square feet of office space do you have left? Will you have left there?
There's approximately, what we have is about 2 stories or approximately 20,000 square feet apiece. So that's 40. And then we have a basement of kind of mixed use, kind of R&D space.
Okay. And how many parking spots are you going to have left there?
The parking is going to be coming forward via a subsequent plan of redoing the front parking lot. So we will be we're working on those plans right now to be presented, and those parking spaces would encompass primarily everything right in this area. And we're proposing roughly somewhere around 135 to 140 spaces. And that would be ample enough to accommodate just this part of the building.
Okay.
We will be seeking a special permit via that, that's correct, right, Valerie, for the adjusted number?
Yes, I don't know if it would be through the planning board or through the ZBA, if you'll need to have a variance for parking. It seems like it could be done through the planning board. But yes, it's essentially kind of gets back to this question a little bit of getting site plan approval and a special permit process at the same time. Otherwise, you may also have to go to the select board. I'm not entirely clear on that process, but yes, so there is an existing special permit for the current parcel, and that permit was approved and written by the select board because there was no planning board at the time. So whichever board reviews it will just need to review those conditions that were put in place and make sure that it's modified appropriately.
On the parking, I mean, we have a parking bylaw, so I feel like that should, I feel like the planning board should, adjudicate that, because we do have some play in different areas of it. So I don't know that a variance would be needed.
Yeah, I was thinking more for proximity to property lines. Yeah, you can of course have a driveway within the setbacks, but I don't know if there's any other structure that might come within those, or but again, it doesn't seem like a variance for setbacks would be needed, but just want to throw that out there in case.
And I believe we're designing within all the setbacks for what's coming forward.
Okay.
in the parking area.
Okay.
And then the lighting will be upgraded to our current bylaws.
For parking lot lighting, yes.
Okay. 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 Any other questions from anybody else?
Yeah. So the coverage, what percentage coverage will you be at when you go down to 1 pod versus 2 of the new lot?
I can tell you roughly in about 2 seconds, sorry. So roughly about 20% coverage.
So that,
and actually I'm wrong saying that, so that's incorrect. So that if I did it by the footprint of the building, so that's even much less. So really, the footprint of the building is roughly going to be about 25,000 square feet, and there's 286,000 square feet of lot.
The new lot?
Correct. So really, it's about just under 7% is the coverage. I added the floors going all the way up for this full 60,000 square feet, but really it's just the coverage of the building.
So I believe the max allowed is 20%. Is there any chance that you would, look to add some other business to that lot? Like if you use the, because you can go up to 20% and you're allowed to have multiple buildings covering that percentage. Is there any chance that you would add any other business in that lot over the
we probably don't see it at this point, only to the fact that we're dealing with the multifamily as a friendly 40B here, and if that was the case, if the office market out there was strong, then we would probably be going down a different avenue. There was a couple originally. There was when Flatley owned the building way back when in the late 80s, they designed it for a couple additional pods. And that's why this parking was set so far back, because there was a pod planned here and then one that was planned here. In addition to that, we also have the riverfront setback related to Great Brook. So that anywhere from 100 to 200 foot is cutting right through the building. So it kind of gives limited availability for development that's there.
And,
Well-
and unless they're going to put in a floating casino, there's the detention pond in the front that chews up a bunch of space.
Yes, it's detention and also fire pond as well.
Yep.
As well as the one that's out at the rear of the site too. Both of those act likewise in the same fashion.
Yes, I'm not sure there's much space, much more that could be done on that lot. So,
and for us, I mean, it really right sizes the building in the end. So, you know, we'd love to have the place full and everything else, but we're hovering at a below a 50% occupancy rate now, well below that with the whole building. So.
Is there anybody in the second pod now that you'll be moving over?
No, that space is completely empty at this point.
Okay. I mean, I wasn't thinking more office space. I was just thinking like if any like potential retail or anything. If you could squeeze some retail in there or something, since you have available coverage.
I mean, I think at that point, it's probably just fitting inside the building itself and then what could be accommodated. You know, if something fitness could go down in the basement or related and that, then it's just a modification of what we have to do to meet the parking standards and what type of fitness it could be.
okay. Okay, anything else? Pete, Jim, Bob?
Yeah, I guess my only question, maybe just not quite understanding the process myself, is so the request is to approve this A&R plan now to make these, lot adjustments, but the building still exists across the lot line. Is that okay?
If you're asking me, we have no issue with it because we're the ultimate owner of the entire property as it stands right now.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking more from a town.
Right.
Yeah, I think it is acceptable because there is a note on the plan that is saying that there's the portion of the existing building to be raised. So there is at least on the plan acknowledgement of that proposed change.
Yeah, I think if that note wasn't there, it might be a concern, but
Yeah.
I think where it is, we're approving the A&R with that note as part of it. So,
yeah,
Okay.
but it's a good question. So
Yeah.
with A&Rs, you're looking for three different things. You're looking for adequate frontage, which they do have, adequate, and then that it meets all other zoning. So lot size, and then looking to see that it is existing along a way that's a recorded way. They call it a way in existence, and that there is suitable access from that way into the parcel itself, so that you're not creating, an orphan lot. So from that standpoint, this plan, would meet that criteria.
Okay, yeah, I just haven't seen anything like this before, at least in my experience. So just wanted to ask, but that's
Yeah.
I understand they own the whole property, so that's not they have a different owner having a problem with that whole.
yeah, it is a little weird to draw property line through a building like that, but where the intention is to raise it, I don't think that's a concern here.
Okay.
So Valerie, did you say that? So we're doing the A&R now, but are we going to redo the special permit for the business side of things?
So once the parking plan and all the other application materials are provided, we'd schedule that as a public hearing.
Right.
Okay. Bob, anything? Okay. Guess if there's no other questions or comments, guess we'll take a motion to approve the A&R.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the A&R plan for 580 Main Street. Do I need to note the date on this plan? I can't.
Sure.
Which is dated.
Thanks, Jeff.
March 2nd, 2022.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
A second.
And those in favor, Mark Sprague,
Yes.
Eric Nayland,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
and Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
All right. So what I'll do is I'll get the Mylar and the other plan sets in the Dropbox at Town Hall. I'll send you all an email when it's in there, and hopefully we can get some signatures over the weekend. And then Jeff, I'll let you know when the appropriate number of signatures are on there, so you can pick that up. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the night.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, and the final item on the agenda is the review of the draft marijuana establishment special permit rules and regulations. So I'm not sure, Valerie, if you want to share a marked up copy of it. Oh, there's Eric's smiling face.
Yes. Let me see if I can find the marked up version. So my hope is while I pulled this up, is that we can get this to into shape enough to be able to schedule a public hearing at some point soon. I'm hoping that we could, if you all agree at the end of this conversation that it seems like it's going in the right direction, then we could potentially schedule something for June 8th. I know that the applicant for 58 Main is nearing the time of applying. We've also have interest for retail establishments in town as well. So there's definitely a lot of interest in this. So I do want to make sure that we have a process in place. So hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll get this looking right. So what I've done is I've included, so this is Mark's marked up version, and I've included my own comments, and then also I added in Eric's comments as well. So I can just kind of go through those. The first is I might want to also work with the select board's office to think about what a host community agreement policy might look like. So there's a clear process in place for that as well. And this other note is based on our conversation 2 weeks ago, we were wondering if we can ask an applicant for items such as a pedestrian access easement for the frontage of their property for future sidewalk or bike lane installation. So I've asked the town administrator to consider that. Let me know what he thinks, if that should be something that is hashed out during the host community agreement phase, or if it actually is something that we can ask for through our special permit process. I'll just keep scrolling for the first one. So we have a different definition of owners. or sorry, of abutters.
So what I tried to do was take kind of the section on parties of interest. So it's owners of land within 300 feet of the property line as they appear on the applicable tax list, and land located in another city or town. So just kind of I wasn't it seemed kind of redundant to say within 300 directly abutting and across the street and anybody within 300 feet seemed kind of redundant, and it doesn't address the that it explicitly that it goes out of across the town lines. That was what
Yeah, I think that's great. That's helpful.
Okay.
And then also just making sure we don't have the word in question in the definition itself.
Yeah, an agent is an agent. Yeah.
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 And then I also might want to add in some of the marijuana definitions. So saying what a marijuana establishment is, what a marijuana retailer is, those typical words.
Yeah. So by changing the cleaning up the definition of cleaning up, I guess in quotes, the definition of an abutter, then parties of interest just is the applicant, abutters, our planning board, and the planning boards of every abutting city or town. Should it be every abutting city or town, or every affected city and town?
For 40A, it's every abutting town.
Okay, so for 58 Main, then a party of interest is the Harvard Planning Board.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine.
It's actually I think it's a great part of the state law. It's helpful. I get public hearing notices from all the abutting towns and copies of their decisions as well. So it actually creates an interesting library for every town of what everyone else is doing.
Okay. No, that's fine. I just
yeah.
Okay.
And if anyone else wants to stop me as I'm scrolling down, just let me know.
So in terms of the waivers, I made a note. So should we give them are they able to submit a request the night of the review, as opposed to give us a couple of days to look at what they want us to review? Because it's saying that where am I? Received prior to the close of a public hearing, and if someone comes in at the last minute, and or what's everyone's thoughts on giving it like 3 days prior to the close of a public hearing, or giving them a set time to do so?
So, I guess my thought on that is, if they come in at the last minute and say, oh, by the way, we also want this waiver, then we can say, oh, by the way, then we're continuing the hearing till our next meeting to be able to review and discuss the request. Fair is fair. If they drop something on us at the last minute, then we can drop it, we can require a continuation.
Right, but
or if they're not amenable to that, then we deny the waiver.
Should we be proactive and say, but it should be 3 days prior to close of the public hearing? That's what I'm getting at. It's because there have been times where before it's like the last minute we get information and then we have to scramble to make a decision. Not a decision, but it's like, all right, let's just hold off. And it's just like, if we had this in place in the first place, can we make that happen?
I mean, could you just request that any waivers come in X amount of time before the due date for a decision to be made?
I think it's, so I've pulled this language from our other rules and regs, and it is pretty standard across other towns, the way it's written, to Mark's point, because if it's pretty standard practice that if we're getting new information, even within 3 weeks of the intended close of a public hearing or a deadline, we would be within our rights to request an extension, because essentially we're saying if we voted on all of the information in front of us, we just would not grant that waiver. It's to the applicant's interest to provide us all waivers that they're seeking at the time of application.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and I would hesitate to quantify it, because I don't want applicants to think it's okay to wait until a week before to drop it on us, because it kind of works the other way as well. So Mark's question down here is this last. So should it be if a waiver is requested?
Right. So if I'm reading what was there originally, it's if a waiver or if a requested waiver is not granted,
it's intended.
Then we have to receive the information for it prior to close of the public hearing, which it seems like if they're requesting a waiver, we would require the information before we vote on whether to grant the waiver or not. It seems a little bit. So
Yeah.
should that just be saying, if a waiver is requested, that all
So it's
information shall be
intended-
received prior to the close of the public hearing.
So this is intended to say if they request a waiver and therefore aren't giving us a complete application because they want a waiver from some element of the application materials that are listed in this document, and then we don't grant them that waiver. So if they say they want a waiver from producing a lighting plan, and then we say no, you have to produce a lighting plan, then they have to provide us that before the close of a public hearing. So this is meaning it can't be a condition of approval. So I wouldn't write it in a decision that they would need to give us that lighting plan after we've already approved the application at that point. So essentially saying this needs to be reviewed within a public hearing.
Okay.
I could change it to say it shall be received and debated, or received and considered prior to the close. So it's clear that there is review of it. There is time for a review of it.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it in terms of, they've requested a waiver and we say no, so they need to provide the information that they were seeking the waiver for.
Right. And then the next sentence is saying, if we need to extend the time for the public hearing in order for us to contemplate whatever material is there, and then the applicant is not giving us that extension, we would be within our rights to deny,
Right.
because we weren't able to see those materials.
I mean, I'm just figuring everyone makes it a point to go to a public hearing. And then if we don't get what we need to know in time, just to sit there and go, all right, well, we'll just suspend this till next month's meeting. And I would imagine people get mad at that, where it's just like, listen, we made it a point to be here to discuss this potential thing, and now because they submitted at the last minute, that it's not going to happen. And now we just keep on extending. I mean, you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, maybe there's like a preliminary, you know, within the first meeting or two of, or first public hearing or two, the planning board does a quick review of that waiver request list and kind of calls out anything that is clearly not going to be granted. So
if I'm not mistaken, there have been times where a waiver's been put in and it's like we don't get it till like the last minute, you know, an hour before the meeting is going to happen, and we're not able to review it. It's you know, should we put in some sort of a timestamp where it's like it should be at least 3 days? I mean, you sent this out last week, and I was able to review it, you know, here, there, everywhere. It worked well. So I'm just wondering where.
I see that point. I think I'd actually like to see kind of a planning board policy to that effect across all special permits. So, you know, I know that Bolton's select board recently did that. So they have a policy that says that any materials before a meeting need to come in at least 10 days prior.
Yeah, it's nice to know. So we have
Yeah.
the ability to review it. That's my hiccup on this.
So maybe
Also,
that's
to add
something.
on that,
Yeah.
to add on that, I know that some developers, when they give their initial presentation, also have a list of waivers that they'll be expecting to you know, ask for, like right up front. That's always good when they do that, to have that list right up front to know what we'll be looking for. I don't know if that's something you can write into what we expect as documents, like a list of waivers, you know.
It is here. I'll double check
Okay.
that it's also within the application materials. 'Cause that should be, you're right, that should be restated.
I may have missed it.
Yeah, there's a lot here. So,
Yeah.
and I'd be perfectly fine with adding in a 10 business day minimum for all of any information. So
I could include that within these, and then also we could have a kind of create our, you know, a board policy for that as well, so that it impacts all other applications.
It should be.
And
Yep.
thank you, Eric. That was actually not in the filing requirements. So, oh no, wait, it is. I think I actually have
3.1K.
Yeah, I think I was looking at 4.1.
Yeah, I found that a little bit confusing, but
Yeah.
okay, we'll get to that in a minute here.
Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Hey, I'd lost my connection. Can we just back up a tiny bit? Up in 1.6, to review any plans, second line, to review any plans and inspect improvements during and after construction. As an engineer, I like to review plans before.
But inspecting improvements would be after.
Yeah, inspecting improvements after is fine.
Right, so there should be something saying that the board, I think I had it somewhere that we are using a consultant.
I think there's a few places where we reserve the right to. I think Bob is saying,
Yeah,
that, review any
Add.
plans prior to construction and inspect improvements during and after. Is that
Right,
what
so
you're?
Yeah,
we're-
my concern is I've had more than one case in which plans were not reviewed appropriately beforehand, went into construction, and then the owner or constructor pleaded hardship.
Yeah.
Oh geez, okay. Yeah, so I can add before, during, and after.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
Any comments on the preliminary review?
Now, out of curiosity, since I'm not familiar with it, how is the security amount determined?
The, where are you seeing that?
1.5, provision of security. Is there a standard formula for that?
So that one, it looks like I'm referring back to the subdivision rules and regs. So in terms of the form, the amount is typically, I typically discuss what that might be with our peer reviewer.
Yeah.
Okay,
there's-
so
They'll-
it's a case-by-case basis then.
Yeah.
So my question for the security is, Mark, I don't know, Mark and Eric and Pete, do you remember when a citizen came to us and they wanted to grow their own marijuana, and there was the state, I believe, had their own guidelines about security with lights, cameras.
Actually, this should probably be surety, not security.
Yeah, that's what I,
The security is a very different piece.
Altogether.
Altogether, yeah, this is the well, for subdivision, this would be the bond that for completion of the road and drainage and all that sort of stuff. So I think
Okay.
that's what this is referring to, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is a little different from a subdivision where, and we've run into issues where there's things that are work that's done in the subdivision that's not really covered by the bond. So I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure what would be covered here. What surety they would be. I guess that would be for any site work. So like 58 may not require very much.
Exactly. Yeah. Site work. Site work will really be the only thing. So in terms of including if they're doing a curb cut to get access to the lot, part of that surety would include damage to public roads, and then any sort of erosion control or stabilization that may be needed if they're doing a lot of stockpiling. It is difficult that with this special permit we have to write this so that it works for a retail establishment that may be going into an existing building, and then also for a product manufacturer that may be building their own site. So it's definitely going to vary.
Yeah.
But typically the applicant brings forward any sort of bonded items for review by the peer reviewer. I think this section I may have even taken from another town. So I can give that a little bit more thought as well.
yeah, I mean, it's the regulatory version of the performance bond. I think that's
Right.
what we're looking for here.
Right. Okay. All right, so are we at the preliminary review?
Yep.
Well, so wait a minute, am I wrong with saying about what the state wants for, going back to security? What they want for security around the property.
Yep.
You're correct on that.
Okay, all right.
There's the state has all sorts of regulations around that.
Right.
And I'm not sure that we necessarily want to try to reiterate those here, because it would just be an issue of, we'd end up always be modifying these to match up with what the current, every time the state tweaks a word, we have to, review these and all of that.
Okay. All right. So
I think there was a mention of security later on here.
Yeah, there
So-
is.
So Valerie, what are we looking at? Are we looking at a cultivation and or a retail? Where is this? I know last time we talked, it was like a major cultivation part, correct?
So, I mean, there could be one in the future, which we should, prepare for. At this point, for 58 Main, it's cultivation and product manufacturing.
Okay.
But the goal is the rules and regs kind of cover
Both.
or
Yeah.
cover all three.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's really good to take very seriously Mark's comment about referring to state regulations. I've always been an advocate of a single source of information. When you start replicating information, then you have to replicate the reference and duplicate it, and you'll never catch up.
Yeah.
And I know at work, the times that we run into get ourselves into trouble is when we have multiple copies of data.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Blockchain, I think, is what we ought to be using here.
Bob, stay in your lane. No, you're an engineer. Don't go to blockchain yet. Okay. Okay. Section 2. I don't think there were any real. I didn't have any comments on that. I thought that hopefully that will help streamline things a little bit.
Oh, just a quick question. In preliminary review fees, board may require as part of the preliminary review. When do they require that? Did they let people know ahead of time, or how could they determine that? From a practical point of view.
That's the point. So where are you seeing that language?
2.4 preliminary review fees. Last
Oh,
sentence in that. So the way I see it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I guess during the preliminary review, will we be having consultants, or Valerie, that'd be where you would say we're probably going to need a traffic study. We're going to need a consultant for these things. So, plan on whatever the fees for that is going to be.
yeah, it's a little bit, we could say that we will require, though, the preliminary review might be less, it might not be that much of a review is the thing, is what I was thinking, is that maybe it's a little bit more simple and they just want advice about a few different items. And in that case, we wouldn't necessarily bring in a consultant. But when they're coming for the special permit, so the actual review, that is where I feel like they're providing us with much more information for us to need consultants. And for these permits, we might be using, there are consultants who can consult specifically on marijuana establishments for municipalities. So it might be different than the typical engineering review. But so for the preliminary review, I was writing, may require, so that the board can have their first meeting, and at that first meeting kind of vote on what type of review they may desire, and or whether it even, the submission rises to the occasion of needing consultants. Does that
Well,
make
my
sense?
question is just timing more than anything else.
Okay.
Now, you were-
Okay. So is this more that the board may identify where we may be using consultants?
Yeah, well, so to Bob's point, maybe I should just add edit the sentence to say something about, to be discussed at the first meeting with the planning board.
So it's going to be, the planning board does a review of the preliminary submittal, determines and has questions that require one or more consultants, at which point they, during that meeting, point this out to the applicant. And so it's after the initial $100 fee.
So the way I'm hoping this reads is the first review is could occur over multiple meetings.
Mhm.
It's the first review of an application, of a preliminary application package. And then if the applicant were to go through that initial preliminary process and then go back, rework some things, takes a few more months, and then comes back with a second preliminary review package, I would view that as the subsequent preliminary review requiring the $100. So I think this is also taken from our subdivision rules and regs.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that those don't also need to change to make it more clear. But I just wanted to say that's where I found it from.
Okay, but in
Yeah.
simple sequence, they come in with an application. Planning board takes a look at the application and says, we need consulting on this. And after their initial review, first hearing, whatever, they go back to the applicant and say, we have these questions for which a consultant would be required. This is an estimate or whatever of what it's going to cost. Please send us a check.
Yes.
Is that what you envision?
Yes. Yeah. That's
Okay.
how it typically works in other applications. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if this is the language they use there, it probably works.
So I will say this, and jumping ahead, okay, on 4.1, 4.9, the ventilation plan detailing how the establishment will be ventilated. I think this is going to be a major problem. What I'm wondering is that in that case, would a third party or a consultant need to be put in to make sure? And once we get there, I will, I'll talk about just a little bit more into what is reasonable in terms of smell. And I think that's going to be again, a concern of the citizens.
Yes, I will say this is another point at which we can also rely on the state. It is definitely very difficult to quantify, just how it's difficult to quantify noise. It's very difficult to quantify odor.
But when you design some sort of an HVAC and or ventilation system, Are we talking about scrubbing the air with like carbon filters? What's going to be put in place? Because what I hate to see is that, okay, yeah, we have all this all well and done. And my question is going to be, well, what happens when you start getting complaints of, the smell of, more so with cultivation, not so much with retail. And it's like a thorough study has to be done. And that's, again, Bob, to your point with the engineering aspect of this, that's when the engineering comes in.
Yeah.
So,
I think that during permitting, we can ask them for a very detailed ventilation plan, and Eric's notes here about including actual metrics there. And
Yes.
then if in terms of enforcement after the fact, so if they're already up and running, they would potentially be in violation of a special permit. But we can also rely on the Cannabis Control Commission for enforcement of their license, because the state is also very interested in making sure that the people they give their licenses to are in compliance with their own laws and regulations. So it may be that the town is calling the state and telling them to do an inspection.
I agree with James in that we definitely have to have some language in there. If it's in the state's, rules and regs or whatever, that's fine. But I think the town needs to protect itself and not, hope that the state will act on, excessive smells or whatever. And so that's why I definitely think, even if we say metrics defined by the state, like, I don't know what those metrics are, and maybe, that's how we do it. But I definitely think we have to have language that we can enforce any if they go out of spec, basically.
Yeah.
I think we need to have language in here that allows us to pull the special permit regardless of the state. If we want to use the state's metrics, that's fine. If we're not scientists, in this area, so if there is some table of metrics that the state has for, sampling or something, that's fine. But I definitely think we should adopt that language, those metrics in language that allows us to pull a special permit if they're not adhering to it.
but
The
question is, how do you measure it?
Well, I mean, so yeah, I mean, that's
to be in there. If you want something that they don't want it to be in their backyard, and it's like all I can smell is marijuana and stuff like that, there has to be, that's got to be really, really spelled out.
It's really, really difficult. I mean, I on Board of Health, we had an issue where one neighbor was complaining about the other neighbor's stables, and she would call and complain, and I would happen to be close by, so I'd be there within 10 minutes and couldn't smell a thing. So one person's one person's horrendous odor, maybe another person may not even be noticeable to other people.
Right.
And we need to be a little bit reasonable. I mean, if when the workers are going in and out of the building, if they have if they open a door and a little whiff of odor comes out, and that's could somebody driving by detect that? Maybe. But is that if it's not a persistent situation? I mean, I haven't looked at the state rules and regs to see what they do for odor. And I'm not sure who the enforcing authority would be on something like that. Is that Valerie? Is that the building inspector? Is it the police?
This is a major issue with all these facilities. The smell coming out of it. So I don't know if we need, just like we have money set aside for subdivisions, for a third party, our peer review, basically. I don't know if that's built into the cannabis controls documentation or if that's something we need, but this is like, noise, ventilation, smells, and like I added the next note, noise, so if there's loud fans or something, I mean, that needs to be addressed as well. Basically, when we give special permits, we say anything detrimental to the neighborhood, and so when you do language like, what did it say? Reasonably detected, or, I think we need to have metrics in there or point to metrics, for all these items. So we're, it's enforceable, basically.
So I'll just add 2 comments. The first is that we do say up here in section 3.3 that we'll use 53G to get peer reviewers, and it's not just engineering. It can be, there are specifically, marijuana establishment consultants that can help towns out with these exact items. So odor, noise, security, all of those, they can speak to all of those issues. I will definitely check what the state is looking for. I am a little pessimistic that they will have clear guidelines. I hope they will, but I don't know that noise or odor has been quantified necessarily. So
I'm not sure that they can be quantified. Well, noise can be, odor I don't think really can. And almost guaranteed, your next door neighbor growing their 6 or 12 legal personal plants will generate a lot more odor than most facilities will.
Well,
because they want to keep their air very clean and very, and they do a lot of recycling of the air to keep it clean, to keep mold and viruses and such out of the grow areas.
Yeah.
I think the state has gotten a little concerned with it for other special permits as well, because noise, if you're having a conversation at a normal volume at your property line, you're in violation of a lot of towns' noise bylaws. Same kind of goes for odor here. If there's a northeasterly wind and a resident is smelling something for 10 minutes, it's very difficult to have an inspection and come back and capture that odor. So I'm definitely sympathetic to those concerns. I just don't know how the state is measuring it, and I also don't know how enforceable it is, because if they are in violation of our special permit, my process is to alert the building inspector, and then he has to be physically on site noticing that violation before being able to issue any sort of fine or cease and desist. So I definitely understand we should put more language in here, but I just want to caution that it might not be as strong as we want it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll look at the state.
Yeah, but if you leave it kind of vague, like what's the wording? Well, you're off the
Reasonable,
yeah.
Yeah.
We could be very unreasonable or that almost allows the planning board to, be unreasonable.
Yeah.
I think the metrics and I know you're saying it would be tough, but it works both ways, well, defining things well will help both sides understanding where they need to be. If they need a carbon capture system to, prevent smell or not to get to whatever rate, and if they need noise, canceling, systems, they're there. I mean, I've heard many stories of, marijuana, being just the smell being very detrimental to the neighborhood, and then it was remedied. So, I just want to make sure that we have language that will allow us to act.
I agree, Eric. Thank you.
You know, I think the best measure is the product when you're looking at a process, and that's great if we can come out with a quantitative approach to odor, which is going to be very challenging. But what I don't see in this is a description of the process and all of the mechanical, electrical equipment that goes into that process, HVAC, recirculation, any kind of double door systems, fans, etc. And MEP is a very, very important part of any facility like this. And you need a good MEP engineer who does have a sound background and does have an HVAC background to take a look at it and see if it is reasonable.
Well, that was another concern of mine, is just water usage alone.
Okay, well, let's get back to Bob, to your point, I think, part of that is, we have the right to get a consultant to help us with that. The facility people, the people that are, what we require for a grow facility may be very different from a dispensary.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of where we kind of fall back on the, we can call up consultants as we need them to help us with that. So I think as long as we have kind of the guideline that, noise and odor need to be managed aggressively, it's up to, the applicant and our consultants will work that out, I think.
Yeah,
Mark,
I
my only
will
concern.
note,
Go ahead, Ellen.
I was just going to say, I will note that this is, so I will follow up, of course, on the metrics, but this is what is required just for a complete application. So essentially, this is what I need to have before we begin the public hearing process. So, I could get a ventilation plan, bring it to the board, and you all can say, this isn't detailed enough, or we need further information. And then at that point, we can get the peer reviewer in, or someone to more specifically itemize what is needed for that particular establishment. But this is essentially just saying, this is what gets the applicant in the door.
Yeah, but I guess my concern is that we're asking for a lot of plans and detail and excruciating detail in other areas. And the big area that we're all concerned about is what comes out of the process, noise and odor. And we need some basic stuff.
Okay. We'll do a little more research on ventilation, odor, and noise, and see what.
Yeah, just understanding the overall process.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Valerie, do you have rules and regs for like an industrial special permit?
Yeah.
Those have the same noise and odor concerns, I would think. So I don't know what our wording is there.
I can take a look and just see.
If I had to guess, it might say reasonable.
Probably does. Yeah.
Probably.
No, all I think is necessary is to have enough information so that a competent mechanical engineer in doing a peer review can determine whether there is sufficient information that makes sense for the type of facility that's being proposed. And they can ask lots more questions, but they need a basis on which to at least make an initial assessment. And that ought to come right up front.
I'm sorry to be harping on this, but is there any concern about irrigation and or water usage in a facility that cultivates?
I think it's in there. I would like, Valerie, are we like kind of jumping? Did we miss any comments? Like,
Yeah,
I'm kind of jumping
we just
around.
jumped ahead.
We
Yeah.
are jumping around a little bit. I will say, so I just looked at the rules and regs for industrial and there's no, I did a quick search for the words odor and noise and there's actually no reference in there.
Boy, wait till I get my rolling mill in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
because they're not, we're not growing, is this one of the first things where we have a mass scale of cultivation in town? I mean, no one's growing, or taking on in a complete area to grow tomatoes. I know it sounds stupid, but it's just like we have so much development going on in this area. Is it something to be concerned about? Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I would just say that this is, I wouldn't even call it growing. It's basically an industrial process. So, I mean, we probably do need to address industrial zone rules and regs. I mean, this is the industrial zone. It's basically an industrial process. And I don't think we need to belabor it anymore right now. I agree with Bob that, we just have to, understand the process, and maybe the wording in here is that, you need a plan talking about your manufacturing process, and, and we need to get your ventilation and your noise reduction reviewed by a, peer reviewer. And if, we might need funds for that as part of the special permit. I don't know if we can do that. Can we ask for, funds for peer review the same as we do in subdivisions?
Sure.
Yeah, as I mentioned,
Yeah.
we're using there's the same language in here around consultants selection and the use of 53G.
The 53G, that's a state rule.
Sorry, yes, that's what allows us to hire peer reviewers. Yeah.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
in there.
Okay.
And then also I'll just in a comment, just as I think I heard it said that these permits are only allowed in the industrial district. I just want to note that as we're thinking about this, retailers are allowed in the business district as well. So
I was just saying, like, a manufacturing process is only in the industrial district.
yes, there you go. Yeah. But it is interesting though to think that this is in more areas that are closer to other residents, closer to other types of businesses. So it's just a consideration.
Yeah.
So moving backwards to section 3, the submission process.
So it's kind of dropped in the middle of the paragraph that they need to supply this.
Right.
So I just said, should that just be moved, down into the list of, because most of the engineers will just look like, oh, here's the list of what I need to do, and not read all this, all this fluffy verbiage here.
Yeah, I might move it to section 4 then. So section 4 is really describing what is on the application form.
Well, I think for the submission, don't we want a copy of that? Don't we want that? Yeah, I mean, section 3 or 3.1, the list of 3.1 in section 4 seemed a little bit redundant in a lot of places.
Yeah, I think it is in some places. I think the intent is to describe, kind of describes a little bit more what is needed. It's a little bit more of an in-depth description, and it
Yep.
has exactly what is on that application form itself.
Yep.
And this is also modeled after other rules and regs.
Okay.
But I think I do have some things that are repetitive. Or in one that should be in the other instead. Okay. So yes, Mark, I can move that down to the list.
Hey, Valerie, a quick question about the 4th paragraph.
Yes.
must contain all changes and modifications suggested by various boards and town consultants under the auspices of the board. Well, if they take exception to that with justification, I should think that would be acceptable as well.
Right, so maybe I can say unless,
I added just unless justification for not including is provided.
okay. Okay. That sounds good. I wanted to add in here also a copy of the host community agreement.
Okay.
That's all I saw. The filing fee, I see no, and even though I understand that this is a business that's going to be making a lot of money, I see no like legal way of requesting a higher filing fee. I think it should be, I think it's only fair for it to be in line with other special permits. And then again, impact fees are dealt with through the host community agreement. So I just kept it at 540.
I agree.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for bearing with me through this.
Yep.
I know we're only on page 10. So
Yeah, so this is just kind of where it's kind of redundant between.
it is. I think I'll take it out of 3.1 and leave it here.
Okay.
And then we're getting back to where we were before on ventilation plans.
So I think, let's see, 41412. So James, this is where the security.
Yep.
That would be, so I mean, they have to, meet whatever Cannabis Control Commission requires, and then, the police chief also gets to review it, and police and fire.
Isn't it in different tiers depending on what you are either cultivating and or if you're just a retail, if you're a dispensary, does it change for that?
As far as I am aware, that the cultivation tiers would not change what is required for security. The cultivation tiers are basically just larger. It's dependence on your acreage and your production. So,
Right.
Yeah, I think from what I remember is it's basically if there's product on premises, the security needs, it seems pretty similar across the board.
There might have been some additional ones on some of the larger pure grow facilities, but I'd have to go back and look at that again. But yeah, a lot of it was the same regardless of what you were doing.
I do think, I think it's good we have some points here, and you point to the security according to the state, because I do remember when we were looking into the private residents and what would be required of them to have an at-home grow, basically. It was pretty stringent. So just, I think pointing to that, the Mass General law is probably pretty good. And if there was a Mass General law for the other items too, on metrics and stuff, that would be good. But I do remember the security measures being quite high.
Yeah, because they want a lit area at all times.
Yeah.
which,
I think it's good that we mention lighting because that might be specific, you know, to our town. I mean, we definitely need the security. I don't know exactly what you have written here, but yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see if the lighting required for security is in conflict with our zoning bylaw. But
Yeah, like
Yeah.
could you still have down lighting, you know, I don't know, and have security? Not sure.
You'd be able to. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, if I remember from our bylaws, you know, basically you could have the entire lot lit. You just need it cut off very sharply, you know, once you cross the property line. So,
Yeah,
you know,
so that might be the differentiator from what the state has for security versus the town. So if we say that the security lighting also needs to comply with our lighting bylaw, which I think you have here.
yeah, it's in there.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if somebody looks and says that they can't meet that because of whatever,
Yeah.
I think we'd have to defer to the mass laws, but I think
Yeah, I agree.
it should be on them to try to that they would have to prove that they can't meet it.
Right. Yeah, because like you said, I mean, you could light the area and like the photometric. I don't know, like the photometric plan, which I think we usually ask for in these types of things, if required. I think we could waive it. It's not looking at, if you have full cutoff, it shouldn't change that.
Yeah.
I don't think we're looking at an attack from the air.
This isn't Ukraine.
Yeah, but we do have drones.
Drone attack.
I think too, if they're not able to comply with the lighting bylaw, I'd have to look at the language of the lighting bylaw, but they may, in that case, need a variance from the ZBA for that. So it might get more complicated for them. So they have more incentive to really try to comply with both.
Yeah.
And that's where a consultant may be useful as well.
Right. Yeah, good point. Okay. Yeah, that language around abutters to abutters is confusing to me. Thank you for striking that. I think that's in some other rules and regs as well.
I was just thinking, it was like, okay, so if I took my property and wanted to make a grow facility there, I abut against the up on the Lord's orchard there. So my abutters would be people that are thousands of feet away, would be the abutters to the abutters, which I don't think is the intention. So
no, and that doesn't follow Chapter 40A anyhow. So
and it doesn't meet our definition for abutters from earlier. So
no. Thank you for noticing that.
Yeah.
And then down here, this note on plans. So I don't know if I quite understand the comment. I think this is just referring to all plans submitted.
So I think this was kind of this and the section a little later on stormwater management. I wasn't sure if these were really, just essentially a cut and paste from somewhere else. Some other, so instead of having, a copy here and a copy in like the subdivision rules and regs, whether we just want to reference, one set of rules and regs, that, because then, I know like when we were updating, I think it was the stormwater reference that we use. I think Eric had to go through and had found it 3 or 4 different places scattered through different rules and regs that we had to update. instead of having kind of one place that, one stormwater management
Okay.
definition sort of thing. So I didn't notice anything in here that was really specific to, to marijuana.
No, there's not.
So I
And you're
wasn't
right.
sure if this was, something we could just, the plans, need to conform to requirements for subdivision rules and regs or whatever the case may be. That was what I was at. That's what I was trying to ask there.
Yep. Yeah, that completely makes sense to me. I can do that for both 4.7 and later on the stormwater standards. Because those were just taken from the most recent update.
Yeah, and that way, if we change it one place, then it's automatically reflected everywhere.
Yep.
Now, as part of the process side of this, I guess to Jim's comment, we really ought to understand a little bit more about how much water is going to be used, how it's going to be recycled, and what's expected to be discharged.
Yeah.
Now, we're not in an aquifer here, and I think slowly but surely we're going to get concerned about water use and normal groundwater.
I think there is a water section later, right, Valerie? Or at least
There's
I made a
stormwater
comment.
management and drainage.
Nah, it's wastewater, stormwater, and drainage.
Yeah, there was nothing in on, because the only reason why I bring it up is because I'm thinking of Bolton Manor, that whole development that's going in there, Tadmore that's going in, that's what's happening. And I just know from prior conversations, there is a little bit of a concern on what that usage is. Again, it's not so much for a dispensary, it's more for cultivation and what they're going to use. And I'm pretty sure that the way that they grow, they don't use a whole heck of a lot of water. It would just be nice to know what their plan is on what their usage is going to be.
Yeah. So I know when they were discussing the community impact agreement with selectmen, they had a really good idea of their water usage. I don't know if we want to ask for that plan as well, here.
Yeah, I think we do. And they do recycle. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I think having water, kind of water management, potable water management, I guess, or I'm not, it's not really potable, but I think having a section, about what their requirements and both and what they're recycling, what they're discharging, how they're treating any discharge. I think that's probably worth.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to jump ahead to that section or just get to it or not, but you want to just go through, Valerie?
Yeah, we can just keep going.
Which section is that in?
I think just go through the document and we'll get there is all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I think we'll get there.
Okay. I will say, I think that we should, well, no, okay, I'll get there.
Yeah.
It sounds like we all looked it over pretty well. So if we have pages that don't have comments, just jump through.
Okay. Yeah, Mark, this was another one from subdivision rules and regs.
Okay.
don't I'm not sure why. I will we should just delete that.
I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure why it'd be in the subdivision rules and regs, but it just seemed,
Well, I guess there is natural gas down near Hudson, so if there was a development there. But
and in Stowe, right?
Yeah. I don't know if there's natural gas right to the line on the Bolton Stowe line. I know some residents have natural gas on the Hudson line. Woogly Road, maybe.
Agree. It just seems like an odd requirement that, if
Yeah,
it's
I don't-
available, you have to bring it in.
It's not available on these roads, so.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so when we get down to 4735, we talk about waste
Yeah.
disposal, but I think we need actually a section in there that talks about water. Water use, water processing. And I'm interested, based on what we've seen at 580, in whether there is going to be a public water supply there. And if so, what is the extent of zone 1 and zone 2? And whether it crosses the road, it's into other properties.
Yeah, so, and with disposal, I think that's later on, like, the same thing, usage, the flow rate, but also, I think we need to, I don't know if we need to mention here in detail about, like, for treatment and capture, like, I guess I'd have to look at it more, but, I don't want them to just release into the ground. I know there's, like, they can capture wastewater and get rid of it. I don't know, I can't speak intelligently enough on how well the treatment is. If I want them to just release it into the system, I think, there's the potential that we would want them to capture it and remove it altogether.
Well, I'll say this, what do some of the nurseries do around, because I was like that one in particular where it was labeled, this is potable water, please do not drink, so on and so on. And I wonder what their, when a nursery decides to go into a town and their water usage is huge, what do they use? What do they consider to be potable or irrigation? What's their verbiage?
and I think maybe just adding a section here on water
management.
Yeah, that's a
I'll get it. I added it on my hard copy.
yeah, I think just both what their usage is, what any recycling, what's in the waste stream, and how does that what treatment does that require before disposal?
And should we specify that this is not a requirement of retailers,
No,
of establishments that are solely retail?
I think it's up to them to basically say, we're going to have, 6 employees, so we're going to have, an employee bathroom or what, break room or whatever, and other than mopping the floors and wiping the counters down, there's no other water
Right,
usage.
exactly. It just wouldn't apply to them.
I mean,
Okay.
it's a very lightweight answer, for them,
Okay.
It's going to be site specific.
Yep.
Yeah, and application and usage specific here.
Yeah,
But
process
I think,
specific.
I think adding something in on water management, because what's required for a grow facility may be very different from manufacturing or dispensary. So I think just getting that is part of the application would be good.
Yeah, I'm sensitive because I cut my teeth on the Board of Health dealing with Genrad across the street.
Yeah.
The biggest remediation job we've ever done in this town.
That was a super fun site, right?
Yep. And it was exactly for that reason, that they had no concept that they were dumping all the result of cleaning their circuit boards down the drains in the floor.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Right. Yeah. I read about that whole situation, but
Yeah, that's why when I was talking about, capturing,
Yeah,
I think what you said, Mark, was perfect. We need documentation on the entire process.
Yep.
Okay. So, Valerie, just one, going back to kind of our not having repetitive things. Do we call out in 41412 under security, we talk about lighting, and then we have in 4.9, we have another go at lighting. So should we,
I can, there really is only, I think, 2 items in 4.9 that are specific to lighting. I can take
Okay.
those out and put them back in lighting and security, or security measures.
I think probably combining them there in one spot would be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the other note I had, and I think we need, I don't know if we need to add this to all our rules and regs. I think we might have done it on subdivisions, but clear cutting, I don't know if we put in special permits or if if we have a clear cutting bylaw that covers all development in town. But I've always felt like if there's any trees over X diameter, they need to be tagged, and you can't just, they need to be noted or something, and whether we, if we allow it, we need to replace it with something. But I feel like we need some restrictions on clear cutting entire lots. And maybe
Yes.
it's like, 15-inch diameter trees and above need to be noted on the plans or something. I don't know what wording you could use.
Yeah, I can put something in here, and we should also think about a bylaw as well.
Didn't we add some? When we changed the coverage numbers, especially for industrial, didn't we add some buffer areas around the edge of the lots?
I think there is buffer areas, but I'm just like talking about internally, clear cutting the whole lot. I feel like we need some type of handle on it.
Exactly, right. Because if it is a
Yeah.
larger site, we'd want them to say what their phased plan is, so they aren't just clearing.
I mean, look at Keys Farm. I mean, they clear cut that, and it's, it's basically a drainage disaster.
Yeah.
If we had
I'd take out the qualifier there, but yeah.
Huh?
I would take out the word drainage, but
just a disaster.
Sorry, I shouldn't say things like that. No, I mean, and that would be where, merging a lot of this with the, or referring to the subdivision rules and regs and making sure we get it right there once might be good.
But
I agree that doing something to discourage, clear cutting a lot would be a good thing.
I think I can add that back a few sections back when I describe the different types of plans we want, just so that in some sort of construction detail plan, it does describe a phasing of tree removal or earth removal or clearing land.
Do you know if other towns have a clear cutting bylaw, or if that exists?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, wanting to get that as a zoning bylaw. But I think you're right that for now, while we don't have that, we should at least just put that in here.
Mm-hmm.
just to cover our bases for one type of permit. But it would be stronger to have it as a zoning bylaw.
Mhm. And that would, I mean, you can't residentially, I guess you can't do that. I don't know, but, or could you? I don't know. Or is that just a business zone, that we would put that in?
You can do it in a few ways. You can say, so I think I've talked before about wanting to do an erosion control bylaw, which basically says that if you are impacting trees or brush in a certain amount of space, then it rises to the level of needing a special permit, even if it's on your residential property. So if, for example, if you're cutting a whole area to install a barn, but you're impacting, let's say you're impacting 10,000 square feet or 15,000 square feet, that might rise to the occasion if there's a certain slope as well. So you say amount of land plus a certain slope qualifier. I've seen that. There are some other ways that you can look at it as well. But yes, I mean, even if a resident is doing something, doing significant work, I think there should be a process for that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I hate to be onerous on residents, but I think they, it just shouldn't be carte blanche, like you said. Like, if the land can handle clear cutting, I don't know if it's like anything over an acre or whatever other towns do, but I feel like we should look at it at least and have some control over it.
I mean, I think we do. I mean, if you look at 4.97 here, they need to identify, existing wooded areas, and then what they're proposing would be, would be preserved. So I think that gives us the opportunity to at least review it and push back on, why are you, clear cutting 90% of the lot, sort of thing. Certainly in this case, it's not ideal necessarily. It's a good first step, I think.
It's easier for a contractor or developer to go in and clear cut and then plant trees to our, the 2-inch, native species, because that tree that they want to save is right in the middle of a road and or a sidewalk and or where they want to put a house or whatever it is. So I mean, I think Century Mill Estates, they saved a bunch of bigger trees. Both close to the roads, and then we actually gave them credit for a lot of, for some of those, so they didn't need to replant, new trees. And I know when we, I think on John Powers Lane, we, nudged them a little bit, and they didn't clear cut that whole area.
But clearly, whatever we have didn't prevent Keys Farm from just cutting down the entire area.
And again, this is not in the subdivision rules and regs yet.
No, I know. So, but I'm just trying to put in place, some control on it. And to James's point, if there's a tree right where they need to road, I'm not saying, like anything over X diameter you can't remove. What I'm saying is it needs to be put on a plan, and if the road's going to go through it, then then we can X out the tree or whatever. But I feel like they should be marked or noted or something. I don't know.
Right. So stepping away from the ideal subdivision rules and regs, for the marijuana rules and regs for the moment, is 497 sufficient?
I feel like you need a little bit more language.
What would you like?
So Eric's comment is this one added in here. So having a lot clearing plan.
Yeah.
So just so that the board is aware of what large trees there may be on site. So I think that's fair to add back into the submission. So what's included in the application, and add that as a different type of plan.
Well, is that, I mean, is that the plan that we'd get for 497? That, you know, that trees over a certain size need to be noted on that, you know, and
Yeah, I mean, I guess,
Yeah.
so you're saying we already have like kind of the clearing plan, but I feel like on top of that, you know, I've always felt like trees of a certain diameter should be put on the plans personally.
Yep.
okay.
I don't know if the board agrees or disagrees, but I feel like we need some language in there that prevents clear cutting.
Yep. I can take a stab at finding some language, and I can send it out to review at the next meeting.
I think 497 is good for buffer. You know, that's good. That's good for buffer, but also, you know, I wouldn't want everything else to be, then they just bulldoze everything else. It'd be nice if they could, you know, keep some landscaping in there. I don't know. You know, I don't know. I'm not sure.
And
what
the language around phasing removal too is not in here. So, so I think that's important to be added as well, as you're saying. So I'll find some language and see where we can add it in.
Yeah, and maybe it is tied into erosion control, like you said, you know, somehow. Maybe it's all tied together. I'm not sure if that makes it more complicated or not, but.
I was wondering, so the zoning bylaw does not mention the co-location of medical marijuana facilities and recreational marijuana facilities. I think the state is allowing co-location, but I wanted to verify with you all that is acceptable to you. Otherwise, we should probably review the bylaw itself.
I think it's okay. Isn't it the marijuana establishment bylaw? I mean, it calls out both, right? I forget even.
I don't think it calls. I didn't think it called out co-location.
I don't see why we'd be against it unless medical doesn't have. So remind me on medical. I forget what we did even. Did we say that we just adopt the state bylaws? I kind of forget what we did exactly.
I'm not very familiar with it either. Let me.
So I think the one off of 62 at first was a medical dispensary, and that you had to go to like a specific parking lot and get shelled over if you wanted for recreational use. I think I think it's a moot point now. I think all dispensaries are open to anyone that wants to.
Yeah,
to go.
They're supposed to
like
be.
I said, I don't see why we would differentiate medical versus not.
Yeah, I don't think there's a need to.
Yeah.
Good. I wanted to make sure that was how you felt before I included that in these. Okay. So, moving along. Yeah. So this is Mark's other comment on because this is taken directly from the subdivision rules and regs. I can just make a note that says that this should be provided in line with the subdivision rules and regs as amended.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is this a good place to put in more information about process description as well as use description? I mean, we've talked of everything we can think of about the building, the outside, the security, the lighting, the water in, the water out, but we haven't talked at all about what goes on inside.
Well, how much of what goes on inside is proprietary versus, and again, do we, putting a practical spin on it, do we care what goes on inside as long as it stays inside?
No,
I mean, if they decide they get better yields by dancing naked around the plants, do we care? As long as it doesn't change the odor or lighting or wastewater or whatever,
That's a process description I've really never seen.
No, but again, I mean, we care about how much water they're using, and how they're treating it, and what waste is what's any ultimate waste water that's coming out. We care about odor that's leaving the building. We care about noise.
I think we leave it to the state to determine if they need to do any sort of enforcement on the quality of the product or the cleanliness of the operation. All that interior stuff, I think, is the state.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I mean, there's multiple ways to do some of the extraction. Some involve benzene and things like that. Others rely on CO2. So, but that's up. But the state's going to be the one who's really needs to oversee that. I think. I don't think we necessarily can.
I guess the only, like you're saying, Mark, what are the ins and the outs, is probably what we're concerned about. But I don't know if hazardous chemical storage, if that's, included in here, or, tanks of something, anything we should be concerned about, potentially becoming an out, But I think, like you said, we just definitely don't need proprietary info, but
no, that's not what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, but I do agree. Definitions of ingress and egress, anything coming in and out, noise, ventilation, water, in and out, and if there's any chemical storage or anything, anything that could be detrimental to the land or the environment or the neighborhood is what I think this should cover.
But hazardous chemicals, storage, use, and so forth will be covered by the EPA.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was with the insecticides or pesticides or any type of fertilizer that's being used, whether it be liquid or solid. That's a good point.
Well, that was my comment earlier about the wastewater management and capturing it and taking it off site, basically.
But what about any type of solid, if they're using soil or a variation of thereof, what's in that soil that is it hazardous waste now that all.
Well, I mean, if their plan is to dump that in the back of the building, then I would consider that something that we need to prevent, as part and out, but.
So we do talk about waste disposal and type and location of many solid waste disposal facilities must be shown and identified.
Mm-hmm.
Disposal of all waste must comply with town, state, and federal regulation or law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, I think the only thing now that I'm thinking about it, I didn't remember seeing here is that any plan on where they're storing any materials. Any raw materials, so soil or anything like that, whether, if that's outside of the building, then I think we'd want to know what that storage looks like.
I mean, once it's wasted, we don't want to throw it into have them say, oh yeah, it's compost now. We're just throwing it into the compost pile and let it become compost.
Well, if that meets state and federal regulations, then but I think the state has some fairly strict. If I remember, there's some fairly strict rules around disposal of plant material and such as well.
Right.
I hope it makes it somewhat clearer if we say, or just remember that there will be conditions in the decision. And so we can make sure that there are statements in those conditions that kind of speak to these types of standards. So we don't necessarily need to know everything going on inside, but if there is an issue for enforcement, we have something to hang our hat on. So for example, last year we permitted 357 Main Street, the environmental pools. And as a pool company, they certainly store lots of chemicals, and they had outdoor storage, open air of materials. So we were able to, I think, adequately condition, I mean, we'll see because it hasn't been constructed yet, but adequately condition a decision to show that outdoor storage needs to be compliant. So to some degree, we should think of rules and regs as just one component of the permitting process. And there are ways we're still able to condition approval, even if it's not expressly written in these rules and regs.
I do think I agree with what you're saying, but I do think it's good to have it on paper so they know what to expect and, what we're expecting.
Should I keep moving?
Yep.
Okay. So if there are edits to these, I'll just note that this is from the subdivision rules and regs.
Yeah.
But again, can we reference them rather than repeat them?
Yes, I think we
Yeah.
should. Yeah.
Yep. Well, we may want to tweak the wording in those to,
Building.
yeah, building and driveway and parking areas,
Yeah. So there's the consideration of traffic in terms of customers, employees coming to the building, but then there's also delivery of materials as well. So thinking about how many truck trips there might be and what path they take.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
my comment. I saw it was like, they said 100 or something, but I think that was just talking about employees and stuff. Like, but I would like to understand other 18-wheelers coming in and out, which,
Yeah.
I think, and we basically had this discussion last meeting about, like understanding coming in and out of the property and, are you turning left into traffic? Are you turning right? Like understanding, analyzing the ingress and egress of the property and what type of vehicles and stuff and how often we'll be coming in.
I mean, I think the 100 is I think that's inclusive of all anticipated traffic, not just employees.
So I guess I just would like,
yeah.
I would just like some detail on the type of, how many delivery trucks per day, and like that
Yeah.
type of.
Well, it's all going to depend on whether it's a cultivation site and or
Right.
dispensary.
Yeah.
And that's easy. I mean, when this all first happened, you saw lines out the door and down the street and parking, and was an issue of different dispensaries. But now that there's so many of them out there,
Mhm.
I I don't see this as a big issue, but it is nice to know.
Yeah. I was almost thinking more like on the commercial aspect of it,
Yeah.
deliveries in and out versus customers.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I think, you know, again, I mean, that's the sort of thing that the applicant is going to have to, you know, I mean, if they have, you know, 20 employees that are there and they get, they're, you know, I mean, you know, they should be able to provide all that information. You know, and if, you know, if it's sounding excessive there or, you know, problematic, then we can,
Address it.
then we can address it or require a you know, traffic study or whatever is appropriate at that point.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal.
I mean, I think for 58, it's, I mean, I don't know how many employees they're going to be looking at there. But yeah. Okay. And I guess the question is 100, is the number 100 too high or too low, or is that kind of consistent with our other bylaws?
I mean, that number is insignificant to the amount of traffic on the road.
Yes, that's correct.
On 117, yeah, but if you know, Colonial Candies decides to become a dispensary, is you know, an extra 100 trips on sugar, on that section of sugar, going to be significant or not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have the provision in here to get a traffic study. So I think, yeah. You know, 1,000 trips a day on Sugar Road versus 100 trips a day on 117. But then, yeah, my only point with the area was just on not just the number of trips, but the types of trips and deliveries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if a traffic study cares about the type of trip, but
well, yeah, my point is I think it should.
Well,
for instance,
yeah.
If we're dealing with like a gas station in the future and we have the giant gas tankers coming in, you know, multiple times a day, and you know, that ingress and egress, if that's happening right during rush hour, you know, what's that going to do?
Yep.
Yeah, so timing of deliveries as well.
Yeah. It may not be as much of a concern back where 58 Main is, but I was in general, I think not just raw number, but just understanding the type of traffic we're talking about.
Yeah, the impact of the area. That's important. That's important. They should be able to provide that. It's not a big pull.
This is all very standard language in here. I did add this section. I was not finding any other comment about the design review board and any other rules and regs. So I just wanted to call that out just in case, just so that the applicants can be aware that the board can ask for review by the design review board.
Probably be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for noticing my numbering. And this is also all fairly standard, but definitely feel free to call out changes because we might want to change other rules and regs as well. It sounds very formal, but this is pretty, it's funny. It's pretty standard across multiple towns. Um, okay.
Oh, Valerie, one general question about signing of applications. At one point, and I can't recall where, it talks about an affidavit or a signature by the owner. And then later it talks about if the signatory is not the owner, they need to be approved in a documented vote by the board. I think that ought to be just made consistent in a single line up front, defining what constitutes person. The Supreme Court has already decided that for us, but
Oh. Um, not to get too distracted by that. So would you like that to be, should that be in the definitions?
So
Or are
Bob,
you saying-
Bob, are you talking about the end of the first paragraph of 3.1 and then 4.1.2?
Yeah, that's the section that he's referring to, but should that
Yes.
be?
Okay,
If-
so 3.1, and that was one of the ones I had flagged. So that's basically if the applicant doesn't own the property, they need and I think you were going to take it out of 3.1 and just keep it in 4.1.2.
Yep.
And 4.1.2, basically the owner has to sign a form that they're consenting to the use, and if the applicant is acting as a trust corporation or company, an authorizing vote, I assume by the trust corporation or company board should be attached.
yeah,
Right.
that covers the whole thing.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So this was 7.2 and 7.3. I was just, is there any real, from our perspective, is there any real difference when they if they're going to withdraw the application, prior to a vote, does it really matter whether it's before the public hearing notice or after?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it would. I think that's more of a technical Mass General Law kind of question. So being able to withdraw without prejudice, I think it's a difference of when they may be able to reapply.
So I thought the only issue on reapplying was if the board rejected it.
Oh, right. This. I think it's just, it's useful to have that difference.
Okay. I just thought it was, it's like, so there's, one's a request for application withdrawal and the other a notice of application withdrawal, but it seemed, functionally the same thing. So it just wasn't.
I think because if the public hearing has already started, they need to get your approval.
They need our approval to
withdraw.
To withdraw. Okay.
Otherwise, they would not. And then the next question about all special permits requiring 4 or 5. That is true. Yes.
Okay.
So almost
all
items
of ours have been unanimous, so I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah. So there are a lot of some permits are able to be a majority, like an A&R can just be a
Mhm.
majority, but if it's a special permit, it's 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And 90 days is
and
the
then
standard.
Yeah, and then, yeah, the 90-day timeline is standard as well.
Okay.
All of this language is in the Mass General laws, so it's basically just reiterating the planning board's process.
Okay.
And then from there, we have the impact analysis, which is also what we use for all other types of special permits. But if there's any question or item that you'd want to include there, we could do that as well. So perhaps some of these questions around traffic and what delivery vehicles may be coming, or what types of vehicles, that could be in this traffic analysis rather than a traffic study.
Oh, I like item 11 under surface, water, and soils. That's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Evaluate the summation of all systems relative to surface water, soils, groundwater, and vegetation. Well, that about covers it.
Yes. Yeah, when an applicant fills this out appropriately, it's very useful. Yeah. So I think if there are any other questions that you'd want in this, definitely let me know. We can add them in. And then the only other form here is the application itself. I've just modified it slightly from other ones. It's helpful to have an email address. Some of it's just modernizing some of our forms.
Tells you how old these forms are.
Yeah.
So Valerie, on page 32,
Yes.
I think we should put into, I don't know where this is going to fit into, but it should be a ventilation assessment or ventilation. I don't know what you want to call it. I was just looking through it and doing my notes, and there's nothing in there that requires them to have some sort of a ventilation plan. That's what I was looking for.
That would come under
Yes.
site utilities, wouldn't it?
And what does site utilities look like? You scroll up just a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
But you'd have to add that in.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll review section 4 to make sure that everything that we're requiring there is actually reflected here.
Yeah. The biggest obstacle we will face with this is odor. And I just know that there are ways of scrubbing the air, again, with charcoal filters and their due diligence, and who's going to monitor that, I don't know, but it has to be put in. There has to be a plan put in place for ventilation.
All right. So, given our discussion tonight, would you like to review some updates again at the May 25th meeting prior to scheduling a public hearing?
Yeah, I think probably maybe if we make all the corrections we talked about and get one final look at it,
Okay.
maybe that would be good.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get out a few days before our meeting, that would be helpful.
Yes, definitely. Okay, that sounds good.
No, it was great to look at it. If it goes to public meeting, how many times can we have a public meeting about this?
If the rules and regs go to a public meeting, is that what you mean? Like if in order to adopt these?
Yeah,
Like we can do it as many times as we want. We just have to give proper notice.
What I'm wondering is that the area of impact that it's going to impact the citizens, like where they're proposing to do either a dispensary or cultivation area, if we were able to get their input, and I just don't think this is something we just want to have one public hearing and that's it. We want to be able to give them the ability to think about it and process it and get their questions. And
well,
So
I mean, the
bylaw
bylaw already passed town meeting. The rules and regs is just trying kind of defining what we expect. I think if we give the normal notice, and we could push it however we push it. It's like a regular public hearing. You give people the opportunity to speak or not speak. I don't think we need to do more than that.
I mean, the proposed rules will be on the website, so people, and the notice will be published. So, the people that are interested will go to the website and pull a copy of the rules and review them. The people that don't care or whatever, won't. It's the same as any other. I mean, how many public hearings have we had, Jim, where nobody has shown up? Or bylaw discussions or anything else. To
me, this is a hot issue. And
I think there may be more when an actual establishment is coming for a special permit. I think that is the moment where it's going to get scrutinized. But I understand what you're saying, that we do want input to make sure that we have thought this through carefully. But I do think it's true that if we don't have something in here, we can always ask the applicant for it, and update these rules and regs accordingly. It does not preclude us from having certain conditions in a decision.
Yeah, I mean, this is like our guideline. I agree with Valerie. I mean, when an actual facility's coming in, maybe it'll get residents in, but there's probably 4 or 5 people in town willing to have the conversation we just had, and they're right here. People aren't gonna, I don't know. I mean, we post a public hearing, we'll maybe get one person, but we'll get a lot more attention when it's, really close and there's actually a facility in there. And this is our guidelines to follow. And like Valerie said, if we missed anything, there's the decision portion of the special permit. And to your point of needing special public meetings or special hearings, I mean, public hearings, sorry. We kind of technically have that because we're holding it now for the guidelines, and then, then we'll have a big, probably multiple meeting hearing for the actual special permit.
Yeah.
Where is the public hearing going to be publicized? Certainly on our website, but
yeah, I think it's usually in the paper, and the website, and if people are on the email list, they get them.
But it does not go to individual homes. It's it goes to, as Eric's saying, so it goes on to the newspaper, it's on the website, and that's, it goes to surrounding towns. That's it.
And quite often there'll be, somebody will end up posting something about it on, any one of the dozen Facebook pages that for Bolton. So
Yeah, as long as it gets into Facebook, I think we're covered. I'm just thinking about the solar field fiasco where
Yeah.
the selectmen thought, everything was under control. They'd heard everything and were very surprised.
Never know what's going to happen at town meeting.
Was
Well,
a good
that's-
example.
That's what I mean. The citizens, the stakeholders in all this, they have the ultimate decision, and, we can only advise this, or I just don't want to get, I like to have all my facts, all my ducks in a row, all my T's crossed and I's dotted and stuff like that, and be able to answer the questions of the citizens. And it's just a matter of whether it goes to public hearing and or can we have something where, listen, before this goes to public hearing and before we make our decisions and or can we have some sort of like a meet and greet or a sit down where it's like, all right, everyone, put into what your considerations are, especially in the areas that's impacted. That's my thought process,
And
because
that's basically the intent of the public hearing. I mean, we just have to make sure it's advertised well, and just 95% of people in town aren't going to care. It's unfortunate, but
I think if
Well, what
there's, I do want this board to feel, planning boards are empowered to create their own rules and regs, and they provide an application process, but they don't, it's not a zoning bylaw. And so I know I wasn't here when that process occurred, but I would assume that there was a lot of public outreach, perhaps multiple public forums around that bylaw creation itself. So I would think that the town has done a lot of due diligence in terms of crafting a bylaw that makes sense for the town and kind of addresses the issues that residents may have. And then if there are other concerns that are specific to a special permit application, that is when those concerns can be heard, is when that special permit comes before the board. So rules and regs really don't hold much. They don't hold much water. It just allows us to say, this is what we expect from the applicant to give us before we get to the public hearing.
yeah, I agree. Like the decision with the particular, 58 Main, for instance, that takes these guidelines and memorializes them, specific to their application.
I think the board is also helped by the fact that the host community agreement process, though it's negotiated in private, but to do that, there was, there were meetings with the select board, and then there were some community meetings as well. So I know it's hard because you have to be paying attention in order to see these meetings happen, but I think that we've, for something like planning board rules and regs, you do your due diligence by just posting the public hearing notice. So
Yeah.
We'll learn a lot from the first process.
yeah, I might
Yeah.
eat my words in 6 months.
well, I think we should just try to get the word out there that we're thinking about this, and any kind of communication to any of us at any time is well accepted.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that's maybe there's something that someone else sees that we're missing, because we're creating something new here, it hasn't been done before, and I just want to make sure.
Well, I agree. Any communication or, any, like, I love the fact having the Zoom meeting, like we talk about getting back into in person. I mean, we've had more participation, on Zoom than we have ever had, in person, because it's just tough to get out of the house if you have kids or whatever. So,
I agree.
any way we can get more feedback is better. And, if there's a better way to advertise public hearings, then let's do it. But, I feel like we do a fairly good job. And, I think that, if you're interested, I don't know who just said it, but if you're interested, you're interested. If not, just a lot of people aren't paying attention, So if there's a better method for getting the word out, then I'm all for it, and everything should be shared on the million Facebook groups, as Mark puts it, and or at least the main ones.
Yeah.
If anybody has an idea for better publicizing what we do, then we should do it.
I mean, Nextdoor is a great app that people use as well.
I know some people who do Nextdoor and not Facebook. So
yeah.
When I advertise for Backyard Bolton, I always put it on Nextdoor, because there is a group of people who do Nextdoor but hate Facebook. So
you do, I see it.
Are you laughing at me?
No, I think it's a great tool. I really do. I think the Backyard Bolton is fantastic. I really wish we could expand it even, into more, but that's for a different conversation for another day. But again,
Anyway.
This is something that's such in its infancy that we have to be able to get as many people as we can involved to understand where they're coming from.
Well, I'll tell you what, when the special permit comes through, we're going to get to know every single resident of Bolton Woods Way very closely.
I agree.
And Pete especially, Mr. Chairman.
We don't want to throw them to the wolves.
Hey, Pete, I don't know if you noticed, but we all took a step backwards.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to shut up now.
Okay, on that note, I believe that we're done for tonight. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And those in favor, Pete Driscoll,
Aye.
Eric Nealand,
Aye.
Mark Sprague,
Aye.
and Jim Barr.
Aye. I didn't hear you, Valerie. You cut out. I'm assuming you said me. Good night, everybody.
And it's been great to
Good night,
observe.
everyone. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Thank you all so much.